Tekking Summertime Tumble! Get it? It's the kanji for summer, because Natsu is how you say it. So if you're ever curious where Natsu from Fairy Tail got his name, there you go. It just means summer. Jump cut! Okay, hey everybody, Tekking here, and happy first day of July to all. You know what that means, right? That means we are about 1 month out from the new One Piece movie, One Piece Stampede. I don't know exactly why it's called Stampede, but I know you have to say Stampede. Maybe Luffy fights an entire herd of Tauros in the movie. I mean, I'm cool with that, I'm curious. So, I thought it would be a good idea to spotlight a lot of the One Piece films here. My original plan was to do every single One Piece movie up until Stampede in one video. And I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. So then I decided, hey, maybe I'll talk about like one movie a week leading up to Stampede, and I don't think we have enough weeks left for that, so I'll talk about all the movies eventually. But I mostly wanted to focus on some of the earlier ones, because when you talk One Piece movies, most people bring up, Strong World, Film Z, Film Gold, the newest ones, and for good reason. Those movies are incredible. They're big theatrical events. They've gotten English dubs. They've aired in theaters all over the world. But if you keep going back, you get to the One Piece films that not a lot of people have probably seen or even really talk about very often, so those are the ones I really wanted to spotlight. We'll get to all of them eventually, but we're gonna start today with the very first One Piece movie, just titled One Piece the Movie. But first, just a little bit of overview to see what we're kind of dealing with here, okay? So right now at this moment, prior to the release of Stampede, we have 13 unique One Piece films that were released theatrically. I already mentioned Strong World, Film Z, and Film Gold as the ones that most people regard as like the best, or at the very least, they're the ones that are the biggest, the highest budget, with the best kind of animation, style, and grand scope. But then you also have films 8 and 9. They were kind of like recaps or reimaginings of certain arcs. Film 8 took the Alabasta arc and re-envisioned it, basically just compressing all of the major points of the arc down into one film. Fun fact, this movie right here was actually the reason I got back into One Piece. I watched the 4Kids dub when I was like 12 years old, and while I somehow enjoyed it at the time, by the time I was getting into high school, I kind of just treated the 4Kids dub of One Piece as just like a children's show, and I kind of distanced myself from it. But one day, I think it was like in 2008, I was probably around 15 years old, me and my dad were shopping in Walmart, and I saw this. And I remembered the show, but this looked like little different, so I thought, alright, I'll give it a shot. And I'm glad I did, because this was One Piece as it was meant to be. Uncensored. They let Sanji have a cigarette. They didn't give the characters goofy accents and lame puns that fall dead to the ground and crappy one-liners and boobs! There were boobs in this movie! And 15-year-old Tekking really enjoyed that. I spent many... This was a sexual awakening for me with Nami and the copious amount of her boobs that are found throughout this film. And then so this was actually the first One Piece film that Funimation dubbed. And then film 9, that was the episode of Drum Island. That was more of a reimagining of Drum Island rather than just a recap or an abridged version. They added some new characters, moved some other characters around, like Frankie is in, the Drum Island arc in that movie, which does not fit with the context of the continuity of the story, but, it's good. Then you have movie 11, Mugiwara Chase, which I honestly hesitate to even classify as a feature film because it only had a runtime of 30 minutes, but hey, it did have a theatrical run, and it was pretty cool to see the Straw Hats in that CGI 3D kind of style. Probably never gonna see it again, but it was a nice little experiment. It's a good way to kill 30 minutes. It's an entertaining enough movie for what it is. So, that just leaves us with movies 1 through 7, which I'll hopefully be spotlighting before we get to Stampede. Starting off today with One Piece, the movie. That's right. No crazy subtitle or anything like Luffy and Zoro in the adventuring Cloud City. No, it's just One Piece, the movie. Released on March 4th in the grand old year of 2000. Before I was even 7 years old yet, so we're really going back into the past on this one, right? Gonna cue up some Smash Mouth, get some early 2000s rock in here, okay? So, the first 3 One Piece movies that we'll be discussing, they all have a runtime of about 50 minutes or so, this one actually being the shortest at 50 minutes exactly, so if it wasn't for Mugiwara Chase, this would be the shortest One Piece film. And while they were released theatrically, they were released in something called the Spring Anime Fair, alright? And they were released with, like, other movies like in as like a double feature sort of deal. This one, One Piece the movie, was released with a Digimon movie, Digimon Our War Game, which I haven't seen yet, and it probably should, because the only Digimon movie I've seen is the American one, where I'm pretty sure they just took 3 different Digimon movies and just mashed them together into one kind of abomination. I'm not really sure. I need to go back and watch the original Digimon films as well, but this is first, okay? So, the plot of this movie was going back to the OG Straw Hats. How OG are we talking? Sanji isn't even in this movie except for a post-credit scene, so this takes place pretty much right after Syrup Village. So you got Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Nami. So if you want to go back old school, this is as old school as you're going to get. It also means I have to make some adjustments to this poster. There we go. Classic Straw Hat. Alright, so, the opening of the movie starts off talking about a legendary pirate known as Woonan, who was basically like the stand-in for Goldie Roger here, if we're being straight up. He was regarded as one of the best pirates that ever did sail the seven seas. He accrued vast amounts of wealth. How much wealth? It was stated he obtained over 1/3 of the world's gold. So yeah, you don't mess with Woonan. He's the real deal, okay? It might have been before Roger's time. In fact, it's most likely that's the case. And something else cool is later on we get a bounty for Woonan, and he had a bounty of 60 million. 60 million for the East Blue might as well be Luffy's 1.5 billion bounty right now, okay? That is insanity, right? The highest bounty we got in the East was Arlong, and then after Luffy defeated him, he got a bounty of 30 million. But hey, at least they're giving us a decent number, and I like to think that Woonan, he was more of like the Goldie Roger, but only in the East Blue. And I know Roger came from the East, but you know what I mean. Like, Roger conquered, like, the world, you know, went into the Grand Line and everything. Woonan might have just stayed in the East Blue's backyard, and we'll just assume that the East Blue had 1/3 of the world's gold in there. Just, okay, whatever. He's this really famous pirate, right? And of course, because he is a famous pirate, he of course left all of his treasure in one place. Now you just have to find it. However, unlike Roger, Woonan actually gave people a fighting chance, and he left a map behind with some handy riddles to at least guide people in the right direction. Roger was just kind of like, yeah, it's in the Grand Line. Peace out, guys. You know, like, that's not very specific, Roger. Could you give us something to work with here? You know, he didn't drop any information about Raftel or the New World or the road poneglyphs or anything. He's like, nah, you guys will find it. You know, you're good at this. But yeah, so that's all backstory, right? It actually opens up on kind of a creepy kind of scene here with a pirate ship being ravaged, kind of disturbing, and we get introduced to this kid. This kid is Tobio, and Tobio is going to be our little child that's going to hang out with the Straw Hats for this adventure. Aren't you excited for Tobio? I'm not excited for Tobio. In general, I really don't like that trope, that common thing you see. It happens a lot in filler arcs for whatever reason. The only character I think gets a pass on that I wasn't really annoyed by was Apis from the Warship Island filler. She was a pretty cool character. She had that neat backstory with the dragons, she had her own devil fruit. You know, she kind of mixed with the crew rather well for that little isolated adventure, okay? She wasn't too annoying. But Tobio, you know, take it or leave him, he's just kind of there. So, the movie starts off with the Straw Hats just sailing around the East, lacking food, because normally this is where they would run into the Baratier. However, that's kind of put on hold for the moment. Instead, the Mary gets robbed by these three dipshits, Donnie, Danny, and Denny. Oh, hi, Denny. And don't these three characters just do a great job at just sending terror into the depths of your soul? Well, get used to them, because they'll be here for the entire movie. They're like the main bad guys' underlings. One of them is rocking a tuxedo t-shirt that you could buy at Walmart for $9.99. Another one looks like Marty McFly when he first went back to the Old West wearing that weird cowboy getup. And the last one, well, his wardrobe isn't quite as out there as the other ones, but he has a goofy haircut, so I'll make fun of him for that. So these three rob the Mary and take all of Nami's treasure, which she gets pretty pissed about, but before Luffy and Zoro can do anything to stop them, the, thieves are actually kind of nice. They give the starving crew some rice balls to eat, and they sit down and start eating them, and Luffy's like, man, these guys were pretty cool, weren't they? He goes then to go try to get some more rice balls as they're leaving, to which the tuxedo t-shirt dude just takes out a flintlock and shoots Luffy right in the cranium. However, he doesn't get hurt because he's obviously made of rubber, but it does kind of come to a funny scene where one moment he's eating rice balls like, man, those guys are pretty cool. Then he gets shot and he's like, wait a second, those were bad guys! So before the crew can go deal with these petty thieves, all of a sudden their boss shows up. A gold-loving man by the name of L-Drago, with the power of the Scream fruit. So it basically allows him to shoot out some Dragon Ball Z ki blasts from his mouth. I mean, you can try to say something else about it, like sound reverberations is what it really is, but come on, the dude basically goes Super Saiyan every time he launches that attack. And hell, at the end of the movie, they even use the exact same same sound effect whenever Goku powers up into Super Saiyan. So, yeah, definitely heavily inspired by Dragon Ball at that point. So he uses his Ki Blast yelling powers in order to separate the crew. Luffy and Zoro fall overboard during this moment and grab on a piece of driftwood, which later turns out to be a part of the Benzin Black, the Kuro pirate cruise ships. That's what they're holding on to. I have no idea where it came from, but it's there. So, anyway, while Zoro and Luffy get separated, they end up finding this random Odin ship out in the middle of the ocean, also indicative of the Baratier that we're going to find out later. This ship that's on the water selling Odin to any passerby. It's actually a really cool design. It gives me some Miyazaki feels just seeing this kind of ship out in the middle of the ocean, somebody grilling up Odin or other food and just serving some customers that happen to just wander by. The Odin boat is operated and owned by a man named Gonzo, who is Tobio's grandfather. Their relationship is kind of strained, though, because Tobio wants to go out in the world and not make Odin his entire life. So, there you go. Yeah, I've pretty much described his entire character in just one single sentence. So, there you go. You're set. Now, Gonzo, though, is kind of an interesting character. He's rather funny. After eating all of the Odin and all the food on his boat, essentially, he starts tallying up how much money it's going to cost, and he goes down this long list of all the food that Zoro and Luffy ate, but it only comes out to just 11 berries, which is cheap as hell, except they have no monies whatsoever. So it's like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet with absolutely no money, and the guy at the end of it's like, all right, well, your total comes to 5 cents. I was like, well, we don't have it. He's like, well, yeah, it's just, you have to pay. So that's kind of a funny moment there. Meanwhile, you cut over to where Nami and Usopp are at. Nami managed to escape, and she's safe for the time being on the Mary, but Usopp ended up getting captured by L-Drago's crew. So they're on the island that Woonan owned, apparently the location where all of his gold is stashed. There's gold up in there's mountains, and we're gonna find it, me hearties. So, they show Usopp the map that has the riddle to where Woonan's treasure is, because Usopp, being the master of lies, managed to convince them that he did in fact know where it was located, because he's expert treasure hunter Usopp. It was also at this point that we find out about L-Drago's obsession for gold. He doesn't just like gold. No, he's in love with gold. He has gold, all over him, his plate mail, and, gold nails and everything, and he starts rubbing up to him, really, creepily, oh, gold! Gold! I love the gold! He's really into gold, okay? To the point where Usopp even mentioned, oh yeah, I'm the great treasure hunter Usopp. I know where you can find mountains of sapphires and rubies and diamonds. And L-Drago's like, rubies and diamonds? Kill him. We don't need this. That's how much this guy loves gold, okay? So they show Usopp the riddle, and the basics of it go like this. They talk about a whale facing west, and the treasure slumbers where the tail is pointing. And anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together would come to the conclusion pretty quickly, if the whale is facing west, then the tail is in the opposite direction, east. However, L-Drago's crew, they're not really the sharpest katana in Tashigi's special closet, so, you can't really blame them for not really understanding it. Usopp makes the connection immediately and states that, oh yeah, so we should be looking to the east of the island. That's of course where the treasure is. So meanwhile, you cut back over to Zoro and Luffy that hang out with Tobio for the majority of this movie, and it's pretty much just, things that aren't really important. You find out about Tobio a little bit and how he doesn't want to become his grandfather, and it's whatever. Anyway, Zoro and Luffy end up getting chained up. That's the point of this. It's a handicap so they can't immediately just jump in and just destroy Drago's crew. Makes sense. Meanwhile, Usopp finds this temple in the island, and this is where he also meets up with Nami. Nami tries to screw with L-Drago's crew using her, talent as a thief, saying that she is a lady named Josephine, and that she is the great-granddaughter of Woonan, basically just trying to trick them to get away, but it just ends up in Drago destroying the entire temple, thinking that the gold is somewhere within. Nami and Usopp manage to get away from Drago's crew while he's distracted, and the entire group meet back up again. They find a whale statue on the island, which is indicative of the riddle that was spoken about. The whale faces west, the tail is where the treasure points. The whale is indeed facing west, however, the tail is actually curved a little bit, so it's not pointing east. Instead, it's pointing toward a giant, obvious mountain, which should have been the absolute first place you would have checked for a mountain of gold, you idiots! Not calling the Straw Hats idiots because they just got here, but, Drago and his group, they should have figured this out a while ago. Oh, and by the way, also on Drago's crew, there's a hired mercenary called Golas who dresses like a Native American. He has a giant sword and he can cut mountains in half. Impressive back in East Blue, but now it's just kind of eh. It wasn't even a real mountain. It was more of a hill, if anything. So yeah, Zoro cuts him down at the end of the movie. Not really an important character. So anyway, though, at this point, they locate this area where they think the treasure is, and Gonzo gives them some backstory on Woonin. It turns out that Gonzo and Woonin were actually childhood friends growing up. Gonzo wanted to go and become a great Oden chef, which is what he is right now. Woonin, however, wanted to go and journey the 7 seas and obtain all the gold in the world. Gonzo replies with the fact that gold cannot laugh with you or cry with you. Gold cannot be your friend. It's just a material. So I think you can kind of understand where the overarching theme of this movie is, The real treasure are your friends. Yeah, that's essentially where we're going with here. Once again, first One Piece movie. It's okay if the plot is a little bit standard, right? Woonin and Gonzo ended up getting into this huge fight and ended up falling off the side of a cliff. Woonin's Jolly Roger snagging onto a tree branch on the way down, while Gonzo was grabbing onto Woonin's waist. However, the flag was tearing, and Gonzo realized that they wouldn't be able to support both of them, so he says to follow your ambitions no matter what, and then Gonzo lets go of his waist and falls into the water. However, Gonzo survives because he's here telling the story, although this leads into a funny scene with Luffy after he explains that, I let go and I fell into the ocean below, and Luffy's like, did you die? It was like, no, he's telling the story, Luffy! He's right here! He's not a zombie! Those aren't going to be introduced for a while yet. So anyway, though, yeah, Gonzo managed to fall in the water, but he was saved by a passing fishing boat. He was saved, but he was in bed for a while to recover his injuries. Meanwhile, Woonin took that Jolly Roger and left the village and sailed out to the seas to become the legendary pirate that he would later be known as, with this great treasure and everything. So that was a cool little backstory we got there. That's like saying, Gonzo is a way more interesting character than Tobio. I don't even honestly know why Tobio's there. He's really just kind of a massive time suck. But anyway, we don't have time for that because we're getting to the final battle! That's right, the movie's only 50 minutes long, so after this exposition on what's going on with Woonin and who he was and his relationship with Gonzo, it's time to brawl. Zoro fights against that Golas dude and defeats him pretty easily while just dropping some shade that he has no pride on his sword. He slices him down with onigiri and pretty much just pip cheerio there. Moving on to the main event, L-Drago vs Luffy, where L-Drago is busting out all of his Super Saiyan 2 powers and launching attacks at him. They prove pretty much fruitless against Luffy, though, because he's made of rubber, so even taking one of those shockwaves head-on basically just causes him to bounce back and then rocket right into L-Drago. It's a pretty cool fight scene for what it is, especially with the kind of animation they were using. This is the only One Piece film to use hand-drawn animation cells as opposed to the digital cells that we would see later. Pretty cool stuff. Sometimes, L-Drago gets launched into the air and fires down sound ki blasts at Luffy from above, so it looks pretty cool. It ends with him just releasing a giant scream attack, which Luffy then wraps around L-Drago and absorbs the entire brunt of it, and then launches it back at him like Goku in the freaking Genki Dama against Frieza. Look at this scene and try not to see parallels with that. So he slams that into L-Drago, but is that good enough? Oh no! Luffy busts out Bazooka to just finish off the gold fetishist one final time in this huge explosion, and that pretty much defeats all of our major villains. As for the 3 dipshit siblings, they're actually called the Hyena 3, but that's just what I'm gonna end up calling them. They actually managed to get away because they're in the next movie as the underlings of the next group of baddies, so we'll hold tight until we get to those ones. But anyway, movie's almost over, so what are we gonna do? Well, we're at least gonna find out what the whole dealio was with the Woonin treasure crap, right? So they go into this room in the mountain, and it's like this secluded, just kind of small little area. It's certainly not big enough to keep a mountain of gold, but they open it up, and inside is Woonin. Well, his skeleton anyway. Woonin died a long time ago. He's just in this room all by himself, wearing his captain outfit with a message scrawled on the wall. The message talks about how even though he acquired all of the gold, he still felt empty on the inside, and that he really just wishes he could have been friends with Gonzo the entire time. And the last scene of the movie is them holding up his Jolly Roger, the one that they used when they were holding onto the side of the cliff that's all stitched up. His most treasured object because it reminds him of Gonzo. And so the movie ends on that age-old cliche of, the real treasure was the journey this entire time. So let me tell you, If you were under the impression that when Luffy and the gang managed to get to Raftel and find the One Piece, and the One Piece is not really a treasure or really anything, it's just like, the journey was the treasure, making friends, having fun, that was what the treasure was this entire time. Oda has already come out and said that is not going to be the case. They're definitely going to get something physical as a reward. But if you ever wanted that to be the message of One Piece, here's the movie for you, because that's the ending of it. So, of course, Nami's kind of disappointed because there's no gold, but at the end of it, we're all like, alright, well, you know, it was the journey, and we're just starting our adventures, so let's head on out into the sea. And we close out with the ending credits to Memories, which was one of the best ending songs of One Piece, period, and we actually get to see a quick shot of Sanji looking on at the Odin ship, kind of sailing around the Baratier with a kind of weird expression on his face, like, what the hell is that? Some kind of mobile Odin vessel? That's weird. Hey, Ziff, get the giant boat fish restaurant ship ready to go. We're moving out. You know, so that was cool. At least Sanji was included very briefly in this movie, I suppose. So, way to go, Sanji. And the rest of the ending credits are actually pretty cool. They adapt various cover pages from early One Piece into them in color. So that was something neat. Overall, the movie, I mean, like, it's short. It's to the point. For the first theatrical outing of the Straw Hats, I think it fits perfectly fine. There's really not so much in terms of character development into each of the Straw Hats. Most of the movie focuses on L-Drago, or the backstory between Gonzo and Woonin, and the overarching message. The villain is as stereotypical as you can come. He's just this big, dumb musclehead with a really strong energy blast ability, who has an obsession for gold, which is his one unique character trait, which really doesn't come off as interesting so much as just kind of creepy. And as for the three hyena brothers, you know, they don't really add much to this mix. So really the most interesting thing for me that I got from this was the backstory between Gonzo and Woonin. That was the most interesting part. And look at Woonin, for God's sake! This dude looks like an actual pirate! He does have some Roger vibes coming off of him, so he is by far one of the more interesting characters here, who is dead by the time the story takes place. But Gonzo's also pretty sweet too, right? And yeah, that's the first One Piece movie. One Piece, the movie. Catch you back here next time when we will be discussing movie number 2, The Clockwork Island Adventure, where Sanji and Nami finally get married. Yup.